Welcome to Wadsworth History on Film, a program presented by the Wadsworth Area Historical Society and designed to record the oral history of Wadsworth for posterity. I'm Cesar Carino, your host. We have three special guests today who were instrumental in getting money for the 200th anniversary. This will be shown in 2064 when they open the time capsule for the 250th anniversary, and we're going to have quite a bit to tell you about how the money was raised, what it was used for, and maybe there's even some left over, but we'll find that out in a few minutes. Our special guests today are Beth Gunther, who is one of the co-chairs, and the treasurer, the man who does all of the work on making sure that the figures add up and subtract right and all that kind of a thing, Larry Douglas, and Lisa Jones, who is also the other co-chair of the Finance Committee, or is it the Fundraising Committee? Which is it?
Fundraising.
Fundraising Committee. And we're going to start by letting these people tell a little bit about themselves, because 50 years from now, some of them will probably be here, but we will have their children and grandchildren know who these people are. Beth, how about you starting? Where were you born? Where do you live? What do you do? And all of those kinds of things. Start with birth.
I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio.
And you came to Wadsworth when?
21 years ago.
21 years ago.
21 years ago, raised both of my girls here. They're both Wadsworth graduates.
And both the girls have names, right?
Yes, Caitlin and Emily.
And are they married?
No, they are
No,
not.
not married. They're still young girls.
Yes.
Good.
Caitlin has graduated from Bowling Green. She's currently looking for a job. and Emily is in nursing school.
And where?
At Fortis College.
Fortis College. And where's Fortis College?
In Cuyahoga Falls.
In Cuyahoga Falls, okay. And what about, what do you do and all those other kinds of things?
Well, I teach music part-time at St. Peter and Paul School in Doylestown, and I am a part-time family minister at my church in Akron.
And what church is that?
St. Paul's Episcopal.
St. Paul, she's a part-time
family minister.
Family minister. Okay, good. Larry, how about you?
I moved here in Wadsworth in 1973. I was born and raised in Akron. I have two sons. Both of them are married. I have 6 grandchildren.
Now I'll put the hard question to you. Can you tell us the names of all 6 of your grandchildren who will be looking at this 2064?
Yes, I can. I have Ella, Trace, Jay, Finn, Benjamin, and William.
And I won't ask you how old they are, because you'll never know, right? And a little bit about yourself. What did you do? What do you do?
Presently, I'm retired. I was an accountant for a company in Valley City, Ohio, called Webb Stiles Company.
Webb Stiles, and you were an accountant there. Well, you had the right job then for what you did here. And of course, you got the big bucks for doing this work, didn't you?
Oh, I did.
You know,
yes, I did.
for
I don't know what threw me into another tax bracket.
We had so many volunteers, but that was just a wonderful way of doing it. Lisa, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I was actually born in Quantico, Virginia, a Marine brat. And
Marine brat.
Yep, my dad was in the Marines down there, and my husband and I moved to Wadsworth in 1987. And really love it here. We raised our 2 sons. I have a son, Brian, who lives in Cincinnati, and a son, Mac, who is a junior at Lafayette College in Easton, Pennsylvania. And he graduated from Wadsworth in 2012, so he's a Wadsworth graduate. And I work part-time for an interior design firm in Akron, Ohio.
What firm is that?
Alan Guerin Designs.
And that was what your background is in
No, actually, I have a background in accounting and finance, but this is what I do because I enjoy it, and it's a very flexible job for me. So
we have a variety of people. We have teachers, we have accountants, but nonetheless, we have people who have a love for Wadsworth, despite the fact that you weren't born here. Now, you would expect me to have a love for Wadsworth because I was born here 84 years ago. Actually, I was born here. Lived here all of my life. I'd had a different address once when I was in the service, and other than that, I just have been at the same place all my life. And so the 200th anniversary was something that I really wanted to live for. I never thought I would, but I was really glad that I was able to do that. Now we need to start with way, way, way back when, in about 2011 or 12, when we start talking about bringing this thing to fruition, that is, or just to a starting point, and that is the 200th anniversary of Wadsworth. What were the kinds of things that you remember about the very first meeting that we went to when they said, we're going to have the big M word, money? What did you think of? Beth, why did you volunteer for this? You're a teacher. You don't make any money.
No. Well, I've done a lot of fundraising through WISE. I was very active.
Tell us
in
what WISE is. Well, incidentally, throughout the entire program, we're going to have to identify places by geographical location because it may not be here 50 years from now. We're going to have to, if something like WISE, we know what WISE is, but tell us what WISE is.
WISE is our parent-teacher organization.
Spell it out.
WHYS, Wadsworth Home Youth and School.
Okay.
I got involved when my oldest was in kindergarten, and I was involved till after my last one graduated, and just did a lot of fundraising for the group and with the group, and actually worked with Robin Labaugh. She was president of WISE United, which is the group that was over all the individual WISE groups.
Tell us what Robin Labaugh does right now.
She is the mayor of Wadsworth.
She's the mayor of Wadsworth, the first female
Yes.
mayor of Wadsworth.
Yes. And so she and I had worked together before, and so she had actually let me know that we were going to be having this celebration and I might want to come to a meeting. So.
Oh, that was really smooth.
Yes.
You might want to come to this meeting. We're having cookies and coffee.
Yes.
You'll enjoy it. And then when you got there, Beth, you're going to be on the committee. Is that what you did?
No.
You volunteered?
No. Actually, Lisa and I went together and we were looking at the committees, and we've done fundraising before fairly successfully. And so we thought it might be something fun to do together again.
No, fun.
Yeah.
Raising money is fun. I would rather have just a very, 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 very light case of pneumonia than have to ask for money, let me tell you.
Well, we thought we'd have fun ordering little tchotchkes to sell for Wadsworth. We really didn't think about the whole corporate fundraising side, which, is a little more drawn out.
And we're going to get to how that money came into the organization. But Lisa, do you corroborate everything that Beth has just got done saying now?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. Robin approached us, and we had worked with her in the parent organization, and so yeah, we thought it would be fun. Although, as Beth said, we were sort of thinking we'd be ordering cute T-shirts and selling those, but it turned into be a little bit bigger job than we anticipated.
Now, when you talk about ordering T-shirts, you're talking maybe a few dollars here and a few dollars there. And you would not have needed a treasurer. How did you get involved being a treasurer, besides the fact that your wife told you that that's what you were going to do?
Yeah, well, the first meeting that we went to, they asked us what we would like to do for the Bicentennial.
What was your first thought?
And my first thought was nothing. No, actually, my first thought was, well, I'd like to take care of the accounting.
Did you really?
And
God
yes.
bless you. That's wonderful.
So I put down on the sheet of paper that my interest would be in the accounting field to track the accounting and the funds. So I ended up with these two young ladies and went from there.
Well, these two young ladies made your life a full-time life.
A full-time deal. And they worked just as hard as I did. In fact, they probably worked harder because
they worked harder.
They went out and did most of the fundraising as far as going to companies. And I went to a few companies around town, and we got pledges, and then they sent the checks in and went from there.
Beth, you said that you didn't realize you're going to have to go out and get corporate donations. Tell us about how you did that, and well, I guess, how do you approach someone to say, I need $100,000? What words do you use?
Well, we never asked for $100,000.
What did you ask for?
We told people what the plan was. We were really excited about all the plans that we had for the Bicentennial year, that there were many activities that we wanted to have, a first night, a ball, and we just really went and approached companies and said, how would you like to sponsor an activity, or would you like to have some small part of this enormous festival that we're having for a year?
What did they say?
Yeah,
Did they
I
all
would
jump up
say
and down and say, yes, we
most
would?
of them were very excited to
Well,
be
really?
on board.
Good.
Yeah, I think throughout town, it was
Yeah.
you know, we would approach people and they're like, yeah, we want to be part of this in some way.
Well, if you didn't ask for $100,000, how much did you ask for?
Well, we really said we had levels of donations.
How were those levels
How were they
established,
broken
Lisa?
down? There was the gold level.
What we did is we really wanted everyone to have an opportunity to take part. So there was everything from pick your own donation. We had wonderful people who wrote us checks for $5 or $10, all the way up to a $5,000 platinum, which
Wow.
was to sponsor one of the main events, first night or the ball.
Did you get that money?
We did. We did. And we had Beth and I had a committee as well, and we had people on our committee who helped visit all these places as well. So we had help.
Oh, you had other people to do it. How many
We
people do you
did.
think that you might have had working with you?
I
Lisa?
think we had four pretty steadily
Right.
that helped and met with us. And
Would it be safe
helped.
to mention their names, because we don't want to forget anybody?
I know that would be a problem.
Okay. It probably wasn't the same people all the time, was it?
Well, Ramona Wonov and Ira Hammond, who's a Wadsworth resident, and Councilman Dave Williams,
Dave Williams.
and Jim Thompson.
Jim, you picked out 4 people who can go out there and do these things very, very well. You know, Ramona Wonoff is the only one living in Wadsworth who actually goes back to the very first person who came here, the Dean family. They have had a continuous line from the Dean family in 1814 to 2014, and Ramona's the oldest living one. Now, there are other relatives around, but she's the oldest living one living in Wadsworth. And she also is a fearless woman. And if she went somewhere and asked for money, I'm sure that they would give her money. They're good pioneer people. You know, Lisa, something else you said there, that you had these levels, whatever you call them, what would you call them, categories?
Yeah, we had
Categories.
different sponsorship
What were
levels.
some of the ones? The $5,000 was the top one?
Yes, and then
Platinum.
$2,500,
$2,500.
and $1,000, and $500.
How many 5,000s did you get?
We got, I think it was $4,000 or $5,000.
See, now that's where you had to have the treasurer come in, because you have enough problem going to these places and asking for money, and now there's coming in by the tons because you are such good people asking for money. You had to get the treasurer. How did you get your treasurer to sign up for this then? What did you do? How did you get him?
I just volunteered.
I know you volunteer, but how did they get you to work 24 hours a day to do this?
Oh, I just enjoyed it. I just
enjoyed it. Oh,
enjoyed
yes.
it. It was part of my job before, and I just enjoyed it.
You enjoyed it. Now, maybe 50 years from now, they won't think that doing something with a computer is too exciting.
Right.
But to those of us who still use 3x5 cards, it's very exciting. Did you put this whole thing on the computer?
Yeah, I set up a set of books on the computer program called Excel.
Excel. Now, is there a possibility that all of the data that you have entered could be preserved so that it could be presented in 2064 so that people could see what you did?
Yes, we had financials, monthly financials that we put together, or that I put together, and then we had an executive board that we met with every month for probably the first year in 2013, and about the first 6 months on a steady basis in 2014, where we would present the numbers and say, here's where we're at, here's what we have to spend, here's what our expenses are at this point. So we knew at any given point in time where we were at.
Define we.
We, meaning the executive committee, which was all of the committee chairmen, plus Roger Havens, Jack Allam, and Mayor Labaugh.
Because they were the co-chairs for the whole thing.
Right.
But now, this started before when did it start then? You said that, I think I heard you say that this started
We started funds coming in 2013.
2 years, well, 1 year before.
Right.
1 year before.
And then we also had funds still coming in 2014.
Still coming in.
The major bulk of our funds for sponsorship and that came in 2013. And then the other bulk of funds that were coming in were from the items that we were selling to commemorate the bicentennial.
Now that's a brand new one. What items did you sell? What did you sell, Beth?
We sold calendars, which also had all of the events
You
on
can,
them.
you can get free calendars. What do these calendars look like?
These calendars featured pictures from around Wadsworth,
Old and new.
old and new.
Old and new.
We had all the dates of the events that were coming up. Plus, we solicited from groups around town any important dates that they might have coming up. We sold T-shirts. We sold
Polo shirts,
hats.
hats.
Hats? How many of these polo shirts, T-shirts, and hats did you sell? Like dozens or hundreds or what?
I think we probably sold a couple hundred T-shirts. Not so many hats and polo shirts. We did sell nearly 500 Christmas ornaments. We had Christmas ornament in 2013 and a different ornament in 2014, and they were hot sellers.
Oh, wow. They are beautiful, too. I can see them on the screen. Beautiful.
And we had bumper stickers, and
Would they say 200?
it was
It said WDS,
Oh, WAD.
and then it had the bicentennial dates on the bottom.
Ah, okay, good. Now, did you sell those too?
We did?
Yes.
Out of curiosity, how much did the T-shirts sell for? But 50 years from now, they'll probably think, wow, that was a real bargain.
they were sold for $10.
$10. Many years ago, like shortly after the Civil War, I worked in a store where we sold jeans, T-shirts, and so forth. I mean, a lot of clothing and so forth. Jeans were $2.50 each, and now they're about, what, 20, 30, 40,
Oh,
50,
yeah.
$50.
Easy.
Yeah.
T-shirts, 39 cents.
Oh my.
39 cents each. And I would imagine in 2014 or 2064, the $10 will probably be $100, or maybe it won't even be any money. Who knows?
Could be. Could
we,
be.
we don't know what that's going to be like. Now let's go back to the kinds of things that you had to do to invigorate the community. Did you have any kind of help from the publicity committee, for instance, to let people know that you're coming in? They didn't think that you'd walk into, let's say, for instance, one of the factories down on Seville Road and say, we need money for our bicentennial, and these people are not Wadsworth people. Many of them who own businesses down there are not Wadsworth people. How did they know about all of this?
We actually sent a letter in 2013 before we approached them. We sent a letter outlining everything that was going to be happening, that this was Wadsworth celebration coming up, and we sent to probably, oh goodness, at least 100 different businesses in Wadsworth. But the publicity committee also helped us by putting things in the Trading Post. That's the way we were able, which is the local newspaper, and with Facebook, which is the computer social networking, to let people know we were going to be doing it. And that's the way we caught a lot of just regular folks,
Lisa, would you expand on the Trading Post? You said it was our local newspaper, but tell us a little bit more about it. What kind of newspaper is it?
It's a small weekly publication.
Free of charge.
Free of charge, delivered to all of our residents. It has wonderful local news. It has a police blotter. The schools have a nice section in the back.
Letters from the editor.
And letters from the editor. You have a column that appeared during the bicentennial year. And it's a great way for people to know what's going on in town. And they covered a lot of our events as well.
The Wadsworth used to have its own newspaper. As a matter of fact, it had two newspapers. To give a little bit of history here, we had the Wadsworth News, and we had the Banner Press. Then they combined and made the Wadsworth News Banner. And then that went by the wayside about 30 or 40 years ago. And we then started getting a little paper from the Sun newspapers. They had maybe 15 or 20 different communities. So we didn't have a real newspaper. Then that kind of went by the wayside as well, and the only piece of paper that came around at all was this little trading post, which was nothing more than advertisements. I happened to be mayor at the time, and just a little bit of history here. And I got a call from the Beacon Journal, which was our bigger paper that came but did not necessarily cover Wadsworth. And it said, well, we're having to move most of our emphasis to Stark County now. And as a result of that, we're not going to be able to give you too terribly much news in the Wadsworth area. So if you have anything, call us. Well, you know, it's almost like saying, I need help. Or what do you need help doing? Well, I need help all the time, because if I want you to hold a board, I can't say, come in and hold this board. I need to have you right there. That's the way I felt about it. I called the editor of the Post and said, what we would like to have is just a little piece of the newspaper to put announcements in. And that's the way it started. And now it is our newspaper. So we have a little bit of history there for the newspapers in Wadsworth. And hopefully in 2064, well, there probably won't be any newspapers because they're going to be all electronic and so forth. Another thing you said, Lisa, about the going into the places, did you go directly to the top people? You and Beth go to the top people, and your people, did you go to the top people, or did you have someone assigned to you to work with?
We sometimes, actually, Mayor Lava was also very helpful in helping us with some of the larger companies in Wadsworth because she had relationships. So she and I would visit some of them as well. And then we also, a lot of times either Beth or I or someone on the committee had a contact in the company, and that's how we were able to work with them. Many times we didn't even have to have a personal visit. We sent them, what we did after we sent the first letter is we sent a packet, and the packet had all the information about all the different levels and the forms to submit, and we would just drop those off, and they would get to the right people, and they just wanted to be involved. Mm-hmm.
Nothing to it. Just, boop.
Yep.
You've got your money. You had mentioned another thing there as you were talking. The mayor had an opportunity to talk with many people because she has a relationship. I think I can probably emphasize, or rather elaborate on that a little bit. The mayor and 2 or 3 of her top people once a month go to all of the factories around for good public relations, but also to find out how their electrical systems are going, since Wadsworth provides electricity to these people at a reduced rate, because since we are part of a consortium that buys electricity wholesale. We sell it to our constituents at a reduced price. And we help them, the mayor and the service director and a couple other people go around once a month, and they talk to these people to see if they could help them save more money. And that is a nice way to get into a factory. So I'm here to save money for you. We're from the government, and we're here to save money for you, but this works. This works very well. Beth, before we go to Jim, or to Larry to tell us how he puts all this stuff together, you said something just a little while ago that piqued my interest, and I wonder if you could elaborate on that. And that is that the $5 bills and $10 bills and so forth, the individual, how did you get those? Did you go up to people on the street, or what did you do?
No, I think it was people were very excited about what we were doing. We tried to pique a little interest at Blue Tip in 2013. We had all of our volunteers in blue t-shirts that were the same logo as what we were going to sell, but on the back they said, "Are you ready?" Are you ready? And you know, people come up, you know, "Are you ready for what?"
Yeah,
and we talk a little bit about.
My first question would be, "Are you ready for what?"
Then that's what we wanted people to do, is ask. And I think with all the advertisement and talk about what we were planning, people got excited about, I want to be part of this in some fashion. I'll give my $10, my $20, which, you know, is extremely helpful. You know, you add several hundred of those up and you're paying for an event.
You better believe it. Larry, now then, I see you have a few gray hairs on the temple.
Yeah.
How many of those came as a result of people walking up to you and said, here's $10, you don't have their names, you don't have anything like that, and you have to figure out, you know, what you're going to tell us what you had.
Well, the way we handled it was we had donation forms that the people would make out. And they'd put down at the bottom, you know, where they wanted it specifically to go to possibly, or just check other. And their names were on it, and we would record it. I have what we call a cash receipts journal, and all of those names and donations were recorded in the cash receipts journal.
Do you have any idea how many individual people paid?
I would say overall we probably had about 400 people.
400 people?
Right.
Wow. And how many people or how many corporations gave big money?
As before, I think we had about 5 large donors of the corporations in town that donated.
5 large ones.
The really large money, and then we had smaller donations from smaller corporations as well.
Now, what were some of the big things, some of the big events that they paid for? And did they cover all of the expenses?
The biggest event, one of the biggest events that we had was what we called First Night. And we had that on the very night, or very date, that Wadsworth was founded, which was March 15th in 2014. And we had all kinds of events going on at that point in time. Plus we had fireworks at the end of the event itself.
And that's expensive.
Yeah, that event was...
About $5,000?
That event in itself was more than $5,000.
Really? How much was it?
I think that event ran us about $16,000.
$16,000 right off the bat. Did someone pay for that?
Part of it, yes, part of it. And then we sold things in buttons to go into certain events and certain venues as the event went on. And then we obviously had small donations come in as well, plus our fundraising items.
Now the fireworks were shot off where?
The fireworks were shot off out of the cemetery.
Cemetery. And that'll probably still be here in 2064, I'm sure. It'll be much bigger than it is right now, even. And where do the people stand?
The people were all standing in the center of town, primarily by the gazebo in that area. And they came right out over the buildings.
And what time did that occur? Because on March 15th, it got dark fairly early.
March 15th, I think those started at 7 o'clock in the evening, if I'm not mistaken.
See, ordinarily at the 4th of July, we have to wait until about 9:30, 10 o'clock because it doesn't get dark until then.
And I can tell you that night it was cold.
I can tell you it was cold too. I was in that uniform for General Elijah Wadsworth.
That's right.
With no coat on. I froze to death. And the wind was blowing. And
right.
Fortunately, it was not snowing or wasn't raining.
No, we didn't have any rain or snow, fortunately.
But just cold, just very, very cold.
Right.
And I thought maybe with all of the 1,000 people, somebody asked me at one of our other programs how many people were there, or I asked the question, and they proffered 5,000. Actually, I'm fairly good at judging crowds because of a formula that actually I learned it in the Army, of how many people stand in a block. And I did a quick observation, and I counted 7,000 people.
That's not hard to believe.
And 7,000 people. So we had them downtown. We have only 20,000 people in Wadsworth, and most of those are wee little kids. Many of them are wee little kids and old people like me. But the vast majority of people were out there. That was wonderful. That's good. You know, another question that we have about your job, Larry, well, of course, to you it's probably nothing because you're an accountant and you're used to books all over the place and spreadsheets and so forth and so on, but actually, how involved was it?
It was pretty involved. I mean, we had various expense accounts that we had to go to, and revenue accounts. We separated all the revenue out, as to in various areas, like the sponsors that we received monies from was put in one area. We had another area for monies that were received for the various events over and above.
Are you at liberty to say how much money we got?
We actually raised in a 2-year period $125,000.
Oh wow, $125,000. Wow, that's a lot of money. And the two of you and your little cadre of people went out there and shook this out of the citizens of Wadsworth? Good for you, wow.
Citizens of Wadsworth, and we also sold items to a lot of folks that used to be citizens of Wadsworth. And so they were interested in having one of the books, and so they were helpful too.
You didn't care whether they were citizens of Wadsworth or they had green money.
One of the really neat ways that we did get it, and we just touched upon it, Lisa was just touching upon it, is we had items for sale on the internet. So they could, anywhere in the world, people could pick on this, go to this website.
Did people do that?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes, and we used credit cards, and we used a thing called PayPal, and they would give
Describe PayPal, because it probably won't be here in 2054.
PayPal was a, how do I say it?
Convenient device for
A convenience.
It's a payment device.
A payment device where you could give your credit card number and buy items for whatever it may be, any of the items that we had on our website, and pay for them, and then we would receive the funds.
But it comes out of your checkbook.
Or your credit card.
Well,
Or credit card.
credit card.
already? So I heard the word PayPal many times, but I'm not too terribly computer literate, truthfully. And I don't trust all of those little figures being in the cyberspace. But I guess a lot of people use them. So
Yes, they did.
That was a one way of doing it. Would you have any idea of approximately how many people were involved with?
We had 204 orders.
Right on the nose.
Yeah, 204 orders. But that was for regular orders. We also had, I think, close to 100 pre-orders for books and calendars.
How many?
So close to 100 we sent out of pre-ordered books and calendars.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. And they bought them?
They did.
What do the calendars cost?
They were $10, and the books were $29.99.
You had said something earlier, Beth, about the fact that you solicited people who had significant events and so forth. Did they have to pay to put it in?
No.
No.
We did have sponsors for the calendar, though, and we ran their ad at the bottom inch of the calendar of each page. So there were people that paid, might have said,
okay.
I want February, or that type of thing.
I see.
I believe our farthest order, if I'm not mistaken, was in England.
Yes, we had one in England. We had one in Australia, but
Australia.
they decided it was a little expensive to mail a T-shirt to Australia.
Yeah, a T-shirt to Australia that cost $10 was probably $40.
It was $38.75. You're good.
Yes, so we have relatives in Australia. We know how much it costs to send.
Cost to send stuff.
We send
Yeah.
prayers.
Yes.
They don't cost anything to send. That's there are two other things I'd like to talk about here with respect to the finances. Did you at any point think to yourself, "Oh my heavens, we don't have enough money"? I mean, money doesn't come in at the same time. You don't have any idea how much you're going to be getting. Did you have any time that you did not have enough money to pay for bills?
No, we were always
Solvent.
solvent.
We're going to have to hire you then for a lot of places because.
But we always watched it too. We watched it very diligently, and we had all of the committee chairmen that had events that they were running. We had them turn in a budget, and we
you answered the question that I was going to just ask.
Right.
Was there a budget there?
There was
Did
a
you have
budget. Each event had a budget.
And did they stay within the budget?
Most of the time, yes.
Did they? What kinds of things would be let's call it a normal expense that postage would be one. Did you pay for transportation? What did you pay for?
We had supplies
Supplies.
for paper and so forth that we used. Shipping, was another one that we always had. The rest of it was pretty much on events.
On events itself. Did you have to pay any performers?
We did have performers that we would pay, but that was within the budget of each event and presented by the people. So
Who were some of the performers, or what were some of the performances that?
We had bands come in. Like for the community picnic, we had, I believe it was 2 bands that came in. Of course, we had the fireworks that we would.
Or didn't you have a band? We had a band also for opening night, didn't we?
We had a band, Akron Youth Steel Drum Band.
We paid them?
Yes, we did. And we had.
What kind of payment do the bands usually expect?
The bands ranged anywhere from, I think the most we paid for a band was like $1,300. No, I'm wrong. We had the Michael Stanley.
Yeah, I was going to say
And Michael Stanley was a big band in this era.
Let's get some of the younger people to tell us. Beth, tell us about Michael Stanley.
I'm the wrong one to ask. I know they're from the area, right?
I think so.
See,
Someone said to me, well, you're going to stay, surely going to stay for Michael Stanley's band. Does Michael Stanley have warm chocolate?
Yeah.
It was cold.
it was.
What did, tell us about that band. I mean, why did we pay so much for them?
Well, the Michael Stanley band, Michael Stanley was a popular singer in the college campuses back in probably the late 60s, early 70s. A lot of rock and roll type music. And he was a very good singer, and he could draw a big crowd. And that's what we wanted for first night. That's the band we had for first night. And that particular band cost the Bicentennial $3,000.
$3,000. Wow. He was popular in the 60s.
Yes.
And this is 40 years later. He's still functioning?
And he's still functioning. Rock and roll is not dead.
In my case, it never was born. But that's another story. The other avenue that I think we need to examine here is the I guess I would call it the legality. What legal things did you have to do? Did you have to establish a bank account? Did you have to have different people signing? Did you have to have an audit? What did you have to do?
What we did on the, as far as the donations were concerned, so that the individuals that did donate could deduct it from their taxes, we had worked in conjunction with the Downtown Wadsworth organization, and they had what we call a 501c3, which is a fully deductible availability to have a deductible of your taxes for any funds that you may put towards a 501c3. And that's how the people were able to take the deductions.
Well, did you have, who signed the checks?
The checks all flowed through the Downtown Wadsworth organization
so in other words, we did not have an account called Wadsworth Bicentennial.
No, there was no particular checking account set up for his Bicentennial.
In other words, you gave it to Wadsworth Downtown, and that organization then took care of that, and they do their own auditing and all of these other kinds of things.
Right.
What about another question about the mechanics of this thing? Say, for instance, that Lisa was walking down the street, and someone came up and said, "Oh, here's $10 for the Bicentennial." So, what did you do with it? Did you run to Larry really fast and give it to him?
I did. I did.
That's exactly what you did?
Luckily, I just live right down the street from him, so I could just walk to his house.
Beth, you don't live across the street from him, do you?
He lives around the
I
corner.
live around the corner.
Well, you're all set then.
We could all yell at each other.
A lot of the funds, Caesar, were sent right into City Hall, at the City Hall building. And at City Hall.
Who took care of them there?
Pardon me?
Who took care of them there?
Kathy Perchowski.
Okay.
And she would register the monies that were received, and then, I don't know, every couple of days I would go in and pick up the funds and take them over to Downtown Wadsworth, and they would deposit them into their checking account.
It's almost uncanny that this thing could work with so many people involved.
It,
As an auditor or as an accountant, you probably scratched your head quite a few times, did you, wondering where?
right, but I'll tell you what, the actual workings of the entire Bicentennial worked like a well-oiled machine.
And it was under tremendously good organizational skills from the people who were involved.
Right.
The 3 people who were involved did a beautiful job of that. The mayor did a phenomenal job. I think one of the things that that I would say, as a former mayor actually, that she has no equal in being able to do that kind of thing.
No.
She's wonderful.
Robin did an outstanding
Yeah,
job
she is.
of keeping us in line and keeping us organized. And the
And such a
volunteers,
quiet, nice way too.
right,
A
and
very
the
peaceful
volunteers
way.
themselves really took the entire event to heart. It was like their job, and they just stayed right with it.
Well, the fact that you volunteered and weren't made to do it,
Right.
you know, you already had your heart into it. Beth, you say you've been here for what, 30 years?
21.
I want to be sure I had enough years.
Yep.
21. Just a little personal thing here. How does a person who comes from a different community, Cincinnati, right, where you were born and reared there and so forth, how does a person like that become so imbued with a love for a community that you're willing to give? How many years did you work with WISE, and how many fundraisers did you do, and 1 full year of doing nothing else but working for the Bicentennial? How does a person change that? I can understand myself doing that because I didn't know anything else.
Well, when we came here, it's a lovely community. I mean, that we picked to live here. In fact, when we were looking at houses, my realtor was very exhausted and said, "I've shown you 40 houses." And I said, "You haven't shown me the one I want yet." And actually, I found this one in Wadsworth myself. She hadn't shown me anything in Wadsworth. And when we drove through the town, we loved the feel of the town. And as you know, my kids started going through school. It's where we want to be. And we love the town. We love everything about it, the schools, the way people are around here. So
it's
we're
almost
happy.
like a marriage. You mean you did not know your mate until you were 21 or 22 years old. All of a sudden, you get to know that person, fall in love with him, then you become a lifelong member of that.
Right.
Would that be a pretty good
Yeah,
analogy?
that would be.
That's the Lisa, you've been around for a little while here, and you do a lot of work in Wadsworth and still continue to do, but you do some other things too other than raise money. Tell us a little bit about what that is.
Well, I was on the Wadsworth City Schools Board of Education
There
for
we
12
go.
years. So from the time my youngest was in kindergarten until he graduated from high school, I
What
served on
caused
the
you to
Board of
want to do that?
Education. You know, when I ran for a board seat, at that time there were no board members who had children in the school system, and I felt it was really important that there be a voice of parents who had children in the school system. So I thought that was the right time for me to do that.
That's strange. Just a wee little bit of history. Some probably 70 years ago, and don't hold me to that number, we had board members, not one of whom was a high school graduate.
Oh,
That was very common at that time because
Right,
a lot of people
yeah.
didn't. And but I was surprised that we had no one who had people here on the board. So you have been a volunteer, so you understand what budgets are like. You understand that there is somebody out there accounting for everything, particularly the newspapers and all those other kinds of things. So you were not the least bit shocked when you walked into this place and they said, you have to go out and get $125,000.
No.
Not at all.
No, we kind both. I also was very involved in the parent-teacher organization, and Beth and I had done enough budgets and run enough between the two of us. I think we've been president, treasurer at every level,
Gone
building
through all
level.
the chairs.
So we pretty much knew what was going to be required.
Well, you know, What's the old adage? If you want to get something done, ask a busy person. And they certainly did pick out the right ones for this. How much money do you have left over?
Right now, we've got right around $20,000
Isn't that something?
left over.
In other words, we came in under budget.
Under budget.
Now, that's going to be the challenge for you people in 2064. See if you can come in under budget.
Under budget.
Now, one of the other things that I'm going to suggest for the people in 2064 is to pick up everything that you people have done and to put ditto marks under it, and they won't have to do anything except go out there to raise that money. Beth, tell us, I know you on a personal basis, and I know fully well that you are an articulate person, and certainly a very engaging person. What approach did you use to the companies when you would meet with them one-on-one? Did you walk in and say, we need money, could you please give us some money? Or did you go out there with a, no, you really have the responsibility to do something. This community has supported you now. You support the community. What did you do?
Well, it's just really talking about the excitement of the events, and why wouldn't you want to be part of that?
Okay. The excitement of the event.
The excitement of the events. I mean, this is huge, the 200 years.
Well, it is, yes.
Why wouldn't you want to be part
That's
of
right.
that?
Now, Lisa, the two of you have different personalities. Both of them are extraordinary in so many ways, but they're different personalities. What approach did you use?
Actually, you know what? I think we worked from the same playbook a little bit. And I also hit a little bit about the recognition piece of it, that you're going to be recognized for being part of this.
In other words,
so
you're going to give them a value for their
a little
money.
value for their money.
Which, of course, is what you had to do as a school board member too, because
Yes.
at that time they measured your value
Yes.
for your money. Big, heavy question for you, Larry. Did you have to go out and help raise money too, or did they let you stay back and just accept the money?
No, I went out and raised some money. I helped out a little bit on that.
And what was your approach?
Well, the companies that I walked into, I was primarily with the mayor, and they were the larger companies down in Seville Road. And our approach was that this is an exciting event. Here's the events that we have planned. We'd like to put your name up in lights. Would you be interested in donating? And that's kind of the way we did it.
How did you parlay that with the fireworks? Well, of course, their name came up in lights, but it just exploded. There was nothing left, and it was all over with.
Well, what we did for the event sponsors, the ones that went specifically to an event, was we had banners posted in the city during that event.
Oh, where were they posted?
Well, they were down by the gazebo in the center of town.
Okay.
And they had their name on it and said, this event is sponsored by such and such a company.
In other words,
Or
they
such
got,
and such a person.
right. They got in other words, they got their
They got
their
notoriety.
recognition. They got recognition and notoriety from that.
Correct.
If you were going to make any kind of a statement about what you would have done differently, what would you do? What would you have done, or what would you do, Lisa?
You know, I really can't think of anything that I would have changed. I think it all went really very easily. I think it's a blessing to work in a community that supports all the events that go on. So the community really made our job very, very simple. I think that it went as smoothly as we could have expected.
No regrets whatsoever?
None.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's something. How about you, Beth?
I can't think of a regret. I don't think there's anything that we could have done differently. I think the way things turned, it shows. I mean, we raised a ton of money,
Yeah.
and we have money left over. I think it would be awful if we had even more money left over. What would we do with it?
Oh, I'm sure we could find something to do. There wouldn't be any
Right.
problem there. You could probably will it to the 2064 organization as a startup money. But at that time, if inflation goes the way that it is, more than likely that would buy one of the firecrackers.
Right, right.
One of the firecrackers. We have just a couple of minutes left here to talk about some things, and I have 3 more questions. And one of the questions is going to be on a, well, I would say, quasi-personal way. Did you have anybody rebuff you? And if so, how did you handle it? Lisa?
You know, we did have a few, especially when Beth was in charge of the calendar, and so we were approaching some of the smaller companies. So there were folks that weren't able to help, and you know, we just said, well, you know, thanks for considering it. We appreciate your willingness to even talk to us, and please come and enjoy the events.
In other words, you made a positive out of that. Mm-hmm. What did you do, Beth?
It was really
Cry?
Stomped out, slammed the door.
No, you know, you have to understand that not everybody can afford a contribution, and you know, it's not in everybody's budget. And so, you know, you just have to move on to the next one and go from there.
How about the accountant? What did you do when they rebuffed you?
Well, we just pretty much said, okay, you know, and again, we understand that some companies can handle it. But I always left the question in their mind, well, if you think you can do something later on, let us know.
Let us know. And did anyone come back?
We had a few.
Did you?
We had a few people that came back and said, yeah, I'd like to do this. And
the second question is, you had what, 10 or 11 different committees that were working with you, and they all needed money. Did they kind of hound you for a little extra here and a little extra there? Or how did you work that?
They hounded Larry.
we did have a couple of committees that wanted additional funds, and if we could have possibly do it, we did. We upped their budget.
Was it poor budgeting, or did something come up?
No, different things come up, and you know, as you plan an event, there's always that surprise that comes up where we'd like to have this, but we don't have it in our budget.
Would it be appropriate to offer an example?
Boy, I guess when we had the historical teas, we had things come up that weren't originally budgeted for, that we decided would be a good thing to have and would be a memorable thing for people to attend to and hear.
That's the second time today you've done this. You anticipated the third question that I was going to ask. We had 5 teas, and we had entertainment at all those teas.
Correct.
Now I know for a fact, at least I think I know for a fact, that some of the entertainment did not charge anybody anything. But we did have some that charged. How did you determine whom to pay, whom not to pay?
The way that was determined was by the actual presenter, as we called them, the presenters, at the teas, whether or not they wanted to make a charge. And if they didn't, a lot of times what we would do is give them a gift certificate, a gift card.
And I would imagine there are a couple of those people whom I know wouldn't even accept a gift certificate.
Right. Right, they refused it.
Absolutely. What was the range that you had to pay for these people?
I think the most we paid was around $200, and that was for the President Lincoln look-alike, and I tell you, this guy looked exactly like Lincoln.
And he even had the ward on the side of his face.
Yeah, I think you remember him from the first tea at the Johnson House.
Yes, I spent quite a bit of time with him.
Right.
I was supposed to be the star, as it were, because I was General Wadsworth for the second time, I guess, but for the first time where people could talk to us. And I'd stand there like an idiot, and everyone would go to Abraham Lincoln,
right,
and talk to him and his wife. His wife, I don't think looked like Mary Todd Lincoln at all.
No.
As a matter of fact, Mary Todd Lincoln was an emaciated, as I remember pictures of her.
She was real.
She was kind of small and emaciated looking and so forth, and this lady was not. She's just a beautiful woman, and horrible thing to say, but I can't believe anyone that beautiful would have married Abraham Lincoln. But she was just a beautiful woman, and of course when he was out of uniform, out of costume, I should say, obviously was just a normal-looking person, but he made himself look like Abraham Lincoln. The only one thing that bothered me about him, that he has such a beautiful, deep voice, and according to all historical commentaries, Abraham Lincoln had a high, squeaky voice. And it's hard to picture a person who's 6 feet, what,
Oh,
4
yeah,
or 5?
6'5".
To have such a squeaky voice. You'd think that he'd have this big booming, you know, voice, and he was an attorney at that, and you would think that he would have such a, but he didn't. Now, getting back here to, we get sidetracked with these little things that are historical, but getting back then to what you were saying about the payments there, how many do you think did not accept anything at all? I mean, they rejected the.
I would say probably 30% of them.
Easily, yeah. I know of one. I'm positive of one.
Mm-hmm.
One that I attended. I tried to get into all of the teas, and I couldn't get into them because they had, you know. And I said, well, I'm supposed to be there because the committee told me that I'm supposed to be there. I said, well, there ain't no room, so you can't come. So you can't come. But I did get into one of them, and I'm positive the presenters there would not accept because there are such tremendously good volunteers here in Wadsworth all the time.
Uh-huh.
So, of the volunteers, and I've forgotten how many volunteers we had, we have to say one thing, that probably the one that everyone would have rejected, every single person in Wadsworth would have rejected, is fundraising and money keeping. And the three of you did that. So, you know, I think you deserve a tremendous amount of accolades for having done that. No one wants to do that. No, as I said earlier, I would rather have just a wee, very, very, very slight case of pneumonia than to ask anybody for money, unless it's taking care of the money, which you have done. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation of what you did, and also for the fact that 2 people plus your little cadre of people who helped you and your good treasurer came out and made enough money, and you have $25,000 left. 2,064 people, the challenge is out there, the gauntlet has been dropped. See what you can do with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
27 seconds left.